Some people never truly leave your life, even after they're gone. Their voice stays in your head. Their name still triggers something in your chest. And somehow, you keep replaying the same memories, like your mind is trying to negotiate with reality. Maybe it was a relationship, maybe a friendship, maybe just someone who slowly became distant without explanation. At first, you tell yourself it's temporary. They're just busy. Things will go back to normal. But deep down, you can feel the shift. The shorter replies, the colder energy, the silence that starts lasting longer than the conversations. And the hardest part, not the distance, the attachment. Because once you emotionally attach yourself to someone, your peace quietly becomes dependent on their presence. A text can make your day. A delay can ruin your night. That's how emotional dependence begins. Not dramatically, quietly. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people spend years avoiding. The more tightly you hold on to people, the more power you give them over your inner world. Stoicism doesn't teach you to stop loving people. It teaches you to stop losing yourself through them. There's a difference. Real emotional freedom begins when you stop asking, "Why are they changing?" and start asking, "Why is my peace controlled by something outside of me?" Because sometimes the suffering isn't caused by losing someone. It comes from refusing to accept that they were never yours to keep forever. And that realization hurts. But it also sets you free. Rule 1. Accept that everything is temporary. One of the hardest truths in life is this: nothing stays the same. Not people, not feelings, not relationships. Yet most emotional pain comes from pretending otherwise. We meet someone, we connect deeply, we build routines around them, and slowly, without noticing, we begin treating their presence like a permanent part of our future. That's where attachment becomes dangerous, because life changes quietly. A close friend gets busy with work. A partner slowly becomes emotionally distant. Someone who once called every night now barely replies. Not every ending arrives with betrayal. Some connections simply fade because people grow in different directions. And still, we resist it. We revisit old messages, old photos, old versions of people who no longer exist in the same way. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that everything in life is temporary, not to become cold, but to stay grounded in reality. The Stoics believed suffering increases the moment we demand permanence from temporary things. Think about how people hold sand in their hands at the beach. The tighter the grip, the faster it slips away. Relationships work the same way. I once had a friendship that lasted nearly a decade. We talked almost every day. I genuinely believed that person would always remain part of my life. But over time, conversations became forced. Effort became one-sided. And eventually, silence replaced connection. For a long time, I suffered because I kept trying to revive what had already ended emotionally. Peace only came when I stopped fighting reality. Some people are meant to stay for years, others only for a season. Neither is a failure. That's life. And the moment you accept impermanence, attachment starts losing its grip on you. Rule 2. Your thoughts create your suffering. Most people believe emotions happen automatically. Someone ignores you. You feel rejected. Someone leaves. You feel broken. Someone changes. You feel abandoned. But Stoicism teaches something deeper. Events do not destroy your peace. Your interpretation of them does. Two people can experience the exact same situation and react completely differently. Why? Because the mind always adds a story. You send a message. Hours pass without a response. Suddenly, your thoughts begin spiraling. Did I say something wrong? Maybe they don't care anymore. Maybe I'm not important to them. Notice what happened. The pain didn't come from the silence itself. It came from the meaning you attached to it. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes colored by its thoughts. And that's exactly what happens during emotional attachment. Your mind keeps feeding the wound. Overthinking, replaying conversations, imagining scenarios that may not even be real. I remember once waiting for a response from someone I deeply cared about. As the night went on, my mind turned a simple delay into emotional chaos. By midnight, I had already convinced myself the relationship was falling apart. The next morning, they apologized. They had simply fallen asleep after a stressful day at work. Nothing dramatic had actually happened. The storm existed entirely in my own mind. That moment taught me something important. Not every thought deserves belief. Stoicism teaches you to pause before reacting emotionally, to separate facts from assumptions. Facts create clarity. Assumptions create suffering. And once you learn to question your thoughts instead of obeying them, you begin reclaiming control over your emotional life. Because the mind can either imprison you or free you. Rule 3. Practice negative visualization. Most people avoid thinking about loss. They distract themselves. Stay busy. Pretend everything will last forever. But the Stoics did the opposite. They trained their minds to face loss before life forced them to. At first, that sounds dark. Why imagine losing someone you love? Because attachment becomes dangerous when your mind treats people as permanent. Marcus Aurelius understood that suffering grows from false certainty. We assume they'll always be here. This relationship will never change. I can't live without them. And then reality arrives. Someone leaves. Someone changes. Someone slowly becomes a stranger. Negative visualization is the practice of mentally preparing for that possibility. Not to become emotionless, but to become emotionally resilient. Imagine your life without the person you're attached to. No messages, no daily conversations, no emotional dependence. At first, your mind resists it. You feel discomfort immediately. Good. That discomfort reveals how attached you've become. I remember doing this during a relationship where I constantly feared abandonment. Every small change in their mood affected me. My peace depended on their attention. Eventually, I forced myself to imagine life after the relationship. Not dramatically, just honestly. I pictured waking up alone, going through normal routines, finding peace without needing their validation. And something strange happened. The fear slowly weakened, because the mind becomes calmer once it realizes, I will survive this. That's the hidden power of Stoicism. Not avoiding pain, preparing for it. Because when you stop demanding permanence from life, you stop panicking every time life changes. Rule 4. Focus only on what you control. One of the greatest sources of emotional suffering is trying to control people, their feelings, their behavior, their loyalty, their effort. You want someone to choose you the way you choose them. You want consistency, reassurance, clarity. But no amount of overthinking can force another person to love you correctly. And deep down, you already know that. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself of one simple truth. You control your mind, not external events. That idea sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because emotional attachment often turns into emotional obsession. You analyze their tone, their replies, their distance, You start adjusting yourself just to avoid losing them. Replying faster, trying harder, ignoring your own needs to keep the connection alive. And eventually, you stop feeling like yourself. I once stayed in a relationship far longer than I should have because I believed more effort would fix everything. If I communicated better, loved harder, became more understanding, maybe they would finally stop pulling away. But the harder I tried to control the outcome, the more anxious I became. That's the trap. When your happiness depends on another person's behavior, your peace becomes fragile. Stoicism teaches a different path. Focus on your actions, your character, your emotional discipline, not whether someone stays, because you cannot control who chooses you. But you can control whether you abandon yourself trying to keep them. And that realization is powerful. The moment you stop chasing control over people, you begin reclaiming control over your inner life. That's where peace starts. Not in controlling others, but in finally controlling yourself. Rule 5. See the bigger picture. Pain has a strange way of shrinking your world. When someone leaves you, they can start feeling like your entire life. Your thoughts revolve around them. Your emotions revolve around them. Even your future starts looking empty without them in it. But Stoicism teaches you to step back, to zoom out. Marcus Aurelius constantly reflected on the vastness of life and time because he understood something important. Most emotional suffering feels permanent only because we are trapped inside the present moment. Right now, the pain feels overwhelming. But ask yourself honestly, will this still define your life 5 years from now? Probably not. Think about the people you once believed you could never live without. The friendships, the relationships, the heartbreaks that once kept you awake at night. You survived all of them, not because the pain was fake, but because human beings are built to adapt. I remember going through a breakup that completely shattered my routine. For weeks, everything reminded me of that person. Music, places, even quiet moments. At the time, it felt like life had stopped moving. But eventually, something changed. Not overnight. Slowly. New experiences entered my life. New people. New perspectives. And one day I realized that relationship was only one chapter, not the whole story. That's the perspective Stoicism gives you. People matter. Love matters. But no single person should become the center of your entire existence. Because your life is larger than one ending. Larger than one disappointment. Larger than one person's inability to stay. And once you truly understand that, attachment starts turning into acceptance, not coldness, freedom. At the end of the day, emotional detachment is not about becoming cold. It's not about pretending you never cared. And it's not about building walls so nobody can hurt you again. That isn't strength. Real strength is being able to love people without losing yourself inside them. Marcus Aurelius never taught people to run away from emotions. He taught them to stop becoming enslaved by them. There's a difference between feeling pain and being controlled by it. Because when your peace depends entirely on someone else's presence, attention, or validation, you slowly hand over control of your inner world. And most people don't realize it's happening until they feel emotionally exhausted. They overthink every silence, analyze every change in energy, carry invisible anxiety into every conversation. Not because they are weak, because they became attached to certainty in a world that constantly changes. Stoicism brings you back to reality. People change. Relationships evolve. Some connections stay, others leave. That's life. But your peace cannot disappear every time life does what life has always done. The goal is not to stop caring. The goal is to care without attachment, to love without dependency, to appreciate people without needing them to remain exactly the same forever. Because emotional freedom begins the moment you realize you can survive loss without losing yourself. And maybe that's what letting go truly means. Not erasing memories, not becoming indifferent, but finally understanding that your worth was never tied to another person's ability to stay. Some people will walk beside you for years, some only for a moment. Be grateful for both. Then, keep moving forward, calmly, wisely, free.